let me make this quick. About a month ago, I tried out this game called Before Your Eyes, a truly iconic game with the art of blinking. The pure beauty of the game is how they held the story up to the last drop, continuously showing how the game can exceed prominent success. In itself, the game reflects some of my life actions and things that I've experienced, and that's for the most part a factor that made the game iconic personally for me. And this is nowhere near universal to others who have played the game. For some, this is not even the case, it's just the game's story that was beautiful, but for some it's, I guess, both. Even for the main team developer and creator and studio director, Will Hellworth, and I'm sorry if I butchered the last name wrong, but the point being, he gave this nice quote about his life concerning moments truly memorable to him. As a kid, his young, impressionable mind was warped by the many digital worlds he inhabited, and now he seeks to use the same power to help people understand complex issues that require a bit of benevolent, allegedly mind-warping first. Things like death and social cooperation and the philosophical purpose of conflict. With a background in developing VR journalism and teaching game development, Will is focused on experiences that take the player out of their comfort zone and show them perspective they would not have been able to see otherwise. In other words, Will Hellworth wanted to encourage people to fight and will grasp on tough situations regarding someone's loss in this case. And the best way he showed this perspective is from the game, well, Before Your Eyes.
I want to give you something, but I think I don't want to be in the room when you see what it is. So maybe if you close your eyes, I can give it to you and I'm gonna leave. Close your eyes now, okay?
Blinking in the game was truly magical as I experienced moments in the game quite memorable to me, the game, and both to other people who have played the game before. Now, I don't mean gradually cycling through each of the chapter scenes and pressing buttons, but more or less enjoying how the story tapes itself together, and you as the main character going through the wonderful narrative adventure in your life. But when it comes to the story, which felt special to me, made me think in particular about the actions that I could take. Now this is personal, but in regards, my life also changed across art, with itself being mainly music, of course. I, as in just recording the audio, will be going into Conservatory of Music, which, if anything, the game just so happens to talk about the comprehensive perspective that Benjamin Bryan has. To get a little bit of a clear understanding as in how the story ties out, the general point goes like this. As he grows up, Benny develops a fondness of art, and especially music. Due to his mother's influence, one day unsupervised Benny begins playing Elle's composition on the piano by ear, and believing him to be a pure wunderkid. His parents quickly decide to enroll him in a piano lesson, and over the years Benny continues to improve in his piano skills, but noted in the game that Benny unfortunately doesn't make it in the conservatory. And now, sadly punished by the overall sadness, Benny takes a new approach, taking his methods in art by drawing and painting. And overall, as time passes by, he successfully reaches his desire, but unfortunately, not for long.
Benny! Benny! Ben! Oh God, can you hear me? Richard! Richard, get up!
I'm up! What's going on?
I think he's unconscious. Call the paramedics now!
Okay, I'm doing it!
I'm just gonna wait for you, okay? I'm gonna put your hair. You feel that? That's me. That's your mom. That's me. Thank you. My only issue was, well, I didn't like him very much. So, I wanted to read you something I wrote for you.
These things will worry as time passes by, and even if the life choices are different for other people, I'd say this sort of aspect would touch on for most of us. but in advance, this is nowhere near to a point where I wouldn't want to play Before Your Eyes again. And one aspect that was adoring to me is how they portray their characters. The first character we see is the so-called dog-like ferryman. He picks you up from the dark sea, ready to talk with you, but as in the game, you're unable to speak or gesture, and at a point you accept to perceive in a conversation and even time itself by blinking, which becomes your primary mode of communication. And this is the point where the game takes you on a whole new level of character design. Maybe not to a point where it's insane, but just perfect enough for you to truly appreciate the conversation that you're into. And that's the idea that makes the game quite the piece, with delightful characters in Before Your Eyes being your parents, Richard, your dad, an office worker, and Elle, your mother, an accountant, and a composer. On the side, as a neat little touch, you also get to know more about your friend and neighbor Chloe, a calm person going to school with you and overall appreciating the good moments and times in life. Now, I could repeat myself so many times saying how this story brings memories to some of my older days, which in fact, lying in the bed before sleep and thinking about the days truly gave me, and well, still gives me tears of joy, and honestly, I'd still take it. But if coming back to the story of Before Your Eyes, the life of Benjamin Bryan slowly deteriorates, coming to the exception where he couldn't complete some of his most wanted passions. The story also talks about other truly heartbreaking moments, with the point being that, well, Benjamin Bryan's life is not perfect. And also coming to the end of the game, we eventually reach the main sanctuary, meeting the gatekeeper. With the acceptance of your life, you continue to appreciate the afterlife from there, ending the game. The overall idea of the game is that life is literally flashing before your eyes, and I can't think of a more immersive and overall organic method of getting that point across. And I'd be glad to say, I wouldn't want a single second to pass by, well, even if it shows some truly hectic moments. At the end of the day, I'd love to play Before Your Eyes again, with its story being so sad yet beautiful, and if anything, giving some perspective of a cruel life of a character that quiet, yet full of passion towards life. Before really getting any plans for this video, or at least before getting the script started, I sent an email to the team developers trying to get a bit more insight of how the game went, but unfortunately, I never got the answer. So, me, as the one pilot, I needed to get through some source on my own. But knowing the long lore and the game development time of Before Your Eyes, it's interesting time and rework of the 2016 game Closure with a similar storyline, and knowing the idea of the team developers' design to recreate what was just the beginning and has now sparked with success over the months. Before Your Eyes in itself is a pretty good inspiration on using eye tracking mechanics, and it's quite interesting to think as in how the team will exceed with the current state and potentially new occurring ideas. But in general, I'd say that Before Your Eyes is definitely one of the most beautiful games I've ever played, with its story so sad yet so vibrant in both the colors of the story, the characters, and the perspective that it shows.
I wanna be somebody, me 2.0 for you. And when you meet somebody, you're gonna feel the same way I do.
Springs has a double load today. Pete's ancient bus is carrying the Flying Bee payroll and a passenger, his niece Betty. Little do Pete and Betty suspect as they chug over the desert wastelands that just around the next curve, shifty sand